All right, good afternoon, everyone, and we'd like to welcome you to episode 2 of the Staten Island Business Podcast, and I am your host, John Perez, and today we have a featured guest. His name is Michael Perina. He's based out of Staten Island, founder and owner of Assembyl 3D. Welcome to the show.
Hey, what's going on, John?
How you been?
Actually doing pretty good. Busy, which is a good thing.
Good. Well, I've known you for years, and I'm glad to have you on our second episode of this show where we focus on Staten Island-based entrepreneurs and business owners. Thank you for coming all this long way from where you're at in Stapleton to where I'm at in Stapleton. A block and a half away. But we're going to talk about your business, what new and exciting projects you're doing. We're going to showcase some of the projects that you've actually done. And then talk a little bit about, the future of 3D printing and where you see it going.
My favorite.
So let's talk about, first and foremost, your business. If you can, give us a quick overview of the business you have. For our listeners who haven't, heard about your business and know what 3D printing is, how would you summarize your business in the next, 30 to 60 seconds and who you are?
So I would explain it by saying that we're essentially a fabrication company that specializes in utilizing 3D printing to come up with the solutions as compared to traditional manufacturing.
Okay.
So there's a lot of things that we can do that you typically can't do in a regular manufacturing setting. Yeah, that's pretty much it. We make stuff.
Okay, so 3D printing, okay, you're making models in plastic, is it metal? What exactly do I get if I want to print something in 3D? How do I go about printing something in 3D with your business?
So 3D printing is a very broad term. It's essentially anything that's additive manufacturing. So we specifically use either plastic or resin to build up the model from nothing to something.
Okay.
Compared to, say, traditional manufacturing where you're cutting away a block of something and then it basically being what you need. So with people just getting into 3D printing, they're kind of lost. They don't really know exactly where to go. It's very similar to, say, photography. If you want to print out a picture of something, you have to have a digital file first, a JPEG, a Photoshop file.
Yep.
So if you have an idea for something, you would basically have to 3D model it from scratch. Or you can go online. There's hundreds, there's possibly millions at this point,
right,
models that other people have designed and uploaded for free. You download a digital model, and then you send it to the printers to print.
Okay.
It's beneficial for the person using it if they can create whatever they need on their own, or they can hire, a service bureau like ourselves.
Gotcha. So let's talk about that. There's, for 3D printing, there's the actual modeling, right, where I can hire you and your company to help me develop a digital model of what I want to create, right, before it goes into production, correct? So I want to create, let's say, a new toy or a new widget, and I work with you to kind of model that in the 3D world, the 3D virtual world, right? What software are you using to do all that?
Oh, it depends on what you need. So if you need something that's kind of more character-based, we'll use a sculpting software.
Okay.
If you need something that's very, geometric, you would basically use like a CAD program like Fusion 360, SolidWorks.
Gotcha. So I'm working with you to do the model, right? The virtual model. And then from there, we get the virtual model, and then what happens? Does that go into production where you actually print the physical widget or toy that I want you to do?
Yeah. So if you're looking to do, just say, a prototype, you're looking for a low quantity. We basically go over the whole project with you. We'll actually create the 3D model, preview it, so that way visually you can see how it looks, if you think it'll work, and then we send it to the machine, make an actual plastic 3D printed version, and then that way you can test it. You can improve it. You can just iterate different designs until it becomes exactly what you need.
Okay, great. So let's talk about some of the projects you've been recently working on. I know you're the only 3D printing company in Staten Island, correct? Or is that...
For production, yes.
For production, okay. What's it like being in Staten Island and working in the 3D printing space? What types of projects you typically get? Tell us about some exciting projects you're working on. I know you've worked on quite a lot, but anything you want to showcase, please share it with our listeners.
Previous or current?
Previous and current.
Okay, so being in Staten Island is good in one way because we're kind of right in between Jersey, the city, and Brooklyn. So a lot of our customers are from those areas. We do have a handful of Staten Island customers,
right,
but they're really behind which realizing the benefit of 3D printing. So we're starting to get more and more local companies realizing the value and coming to us and asking for solutions that we help with. As far as the previous projects, my most favorite project that we've done so far is definitely the prosthetic arm.
Okay.
I'm sure you're fully aware.
Yeah,
of
we're
it.
going to actually go into that just shortly. So let's pause on that, right? Let's go right into this story. I think this is motivating. I really like this story. Let's take a listen into how 3D technology literally gives a little boy a new arm on Staten Island, and we got to thank Michael Perina for doing this. But let's take a listen to the Staten Island live news clip.
Show yourself. Right there.
I was adopted.
This kid is the man, by the way.
I used to live in China.
We had always thought we wanted to adopt, but at one point we were like, okay, we're done with our family. 2 was enough. And then we just really felt like it was something we wanted to do. So we all got together and we talked about it and then prayed about it. And then this little guy was brought to us. We wanted a boy, and to be able to get a boy, you had to go their special needs route. So we had always said we wouldn't, mind a child with a missing limb. That was fine for us. And then he came, his little picture came in the mail, and we were like, absolutely. We saw this video like a couple of years ago, and we had asked Jeremy, we showed it to him, would you want to, get a prosthetic arm? He was like, nah, I'm fine the way I am. And then about, sometime in November, my neighbor next door, Sharon, she said, I saw this really cool video of these prosthetic arms, 3D. You think Jeremy would be interested? I said, I asked him a while ago and he said no. I said, let's show him again. And then he was like, yeah, I want one. And one day my sister's like, I'm going to Google 3D, see if there's any 3D printing places on Staten Island. And she Googled it, and Mike's name, his company came up. She emailed him. And like 4 minutes later, he called her back and was like, I would love to do this. I've been wanting to do something like this for like 4 years. When we first saw him, we thought it was so cool because he was so happy to just do things like shake a hand, or he was like scratching his head and holding a cup, like just doing things, clapping, things that we take for granted with 2 hands, and it was just nice to see. He's very well adjusted without it. He does almost anything, but doing those little things, it's pretty cool to see him do that.
The few times I tried to pick up an apple, but then it fell down a few times.
But then when you were able to do it, what was it like? How did it make you feel?
Awesome!
So now you're going to be showing your friends.
On Sunday.
So we're just taking a look at that prosthetic arm that you actually created. Tell us a little bit about your story on this particular one, and then we'll get into the other projects that you're working on. But as they said, they reached out to you. You've created a prosthetic arm for this child. Give us a little insight on how it started and what you did.
Yeah. So even when I first got into 3D printing, there's a company called Enable, nonprofit organization that makes it possible to connect people that have these parametric design. Parametric meaning you just enter dimensions, it'll change the model automatically. And their whole mission is to provide these arms to kids for anybody that wants to make it for them. So I always wanted to do one. Of course, it means more when it's somebody local that is in your hometown. So once we got the call, I said, I'd love to do this. But I wanted to do it over the top and make it as cool as possible. Nice. So he came for, just a meeting, just sit down and kind of get to know them. And we found out that he likes Transformers. So we figured we'll do one Transformer themed one, and then we'll do one that's like skin flesh. So we had a couple of artists that were amazing, dedicated their time to come in, Deanna Vessi and Sam Polio. And they came in and they did all the painting and just made it really special for him. What's cool though, what I like about the story though, my favorite part is the fact that he could have already do anything. He was so equipped with it, he was so used to it, that he really didn't need a prosthetic arm, right? But being able to 3D print something that is like, if you go to a medical place and you get one of those replacements, they look ugly. You probably get made fun of, and he's already getting made fun of in school
Right.
for having, not being like the other kids.
Right.
So once he came into school with, a Transformers one, that kind of like, he had something
Nice.
cool that nobody
Yeah.
else had. And like, then he became like the cool kid. So you go from a place of, being looked down on,
Right.
even though he could do anything anyway, but now
Right.
just the public perception of him is,
Yeah.
it's motivating. It's really cool.
Right. So it's not only just printing the arm, right, but now the design that went into it, the artwork to make it a cool.
Yeah, and you can upgrade it. You can put some Nerf shooters on there. You could change it for the season.
That's great. Well, hey, I mean, great work on that. I mean, give us some examples of some other exciting stuff you've done in the past, and even what you're working towards in the future.
Sure. So my second favorite project, I would say, is we did the buildings for the series finale of Gotham. And it was a really cool job, but it just meant more to me because, nostalgia. Batman was my favorite when I was
Yeah.
a little kid, and it was just cool
Gotham.
to work on something like
Wow.
that. Third favorite project was a recent one that we did, and the reason why it's my favorite is because it was impossible. We had to produce, I think it was a total of 80 feet lengthwise of these 3D buildings, some as high as 6'5".
Wow.
So we had 2 weeks to not only 3D print a massive amount of plastic and printers, but then also take these models, glue them together, process them, sand them, paint them,
Wow.
and have them fully ready for a show with a very hard deadline of 2 weeks. So I think we wound up being 3,800 printing hours.
Wow.
We doubled our capacity of machines, and we got it done just in the nick of time. So that's my favorite project, just because we set out a goal, something that we've never done before. In fact, it's actually twice our max production
Right.
that we've done at once. And, we knocked it out of the park, so that's the third favorite. The rest of them are either covered by NDA, which sometimes is not great because some of those projects are really cool, but
Right.
we can't speak about them.
It's okay.
Other ones are just really innovative solutions where the client will come in and say, hey, listen, here's my unique problem. The first thing I do right away is try to steer them towards off the shelf because it's going to be cheaper, it's going to be a little more economical for them. But sometimes there is no off-the-shelf option. So when they come in, they say, hey, here's the issue. I was thinking we could do this. And it's like, oh, I wouldn't even thought of that myself. That's a great idea. So we're able to provide them with something where we're potentially saving them hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Wow.
By being able to produce it via 3D printing as opposed to anything off the shelf or traditional manufacturing.
Right. I think that's important to highlight, right? What's the business value of 3D printing, right? Is it more perceived as an expense, or can you actually save money with it, right? And that's great to be able to hear stories like that where, no, it's saving you money, right?
Yeah. I don't like those jobs where they come in and they're like, oh, I need all these pieces. And I'm going to say, why don't you just go to Home Depot and you can buy this part, just cut it and
Right.
save yourself. All the time I try to
Right.
correct their expectations as far as what they're coming to get with 3D printing.
Gotcha. Now, we talked about, I guess, how 3D printing has helped, people in healthcare, right, with a prosthetic arm. What other industries you think 3D printing is taken off in? I mean, what's your perspective on that? Is it just healthcare, or do you think there are other industries that it's having a more impactful benefit?
So 3D printing affects almost every single industry. I think the more interesting question is which one is it disrupting, right? Because
Yeah.
it's kind of changing some stuff on its head.
Right.
Those are the ones, the case-based that I really like. Because if you think about it, the auto industry, of course, is using 3D printing, but they're doing it for jigs, tools. Same thing with manufacturing.
Right.
They're
Housing as well, right? They print in housing.
Well, that was the counter example. So
Okay.
like the boring example to me, which is still exciting and great, but it's like jigs, fixtures, stuff like that these companies are using.
Right.
But it's just an added advantage. But then when you get into the construction market, you have those
Wow.
printers that are making houses within 4 hours, 8 hours. And that's changing the game. There's another one, even though it's, I guess, kind of health, but in the dental industry. You ever hear of Smile Direct Club?
I think it's a nonprofit, right?
No, they're for
Okay,
profit.
no, then I haven't.
Yeah, so they have a really unique business model. They partner with HP with this multi-jet fusion printers, and they are currently producing, I think it was 50 million retainers, or essentially like Invisalign braces, essentially. But they're doing it to lower the barriers of entry, lowers the cost, and automate the whole entire process.
Got it.
So you basically, I think they send you something. I don't know. You have to go to the doctor once. You go there, they scan your teeth, and then you don't have to go back again, and they just mail them to you. So it's a less extensive thing. And it's changing like everything around.
So it's disrupting industries, which is great, right? And we need that. And you're saying, hey, it's everywhere, right? So whether you're working in technology, healthcare, there's an impact, there's a use case for 3D printing. Now, everybody's talking artificial intelligence, right? And AI is kind of like the new thing everyone is focused on in business. How do you think AI is going to either help or hinder 3D printing? I've never, we do a lot of AI. I run a tech company, and we're doing AI with chatbots, for example. But, when you think of 3D printing, I was having trouble coming up with use cases. How is AI either currently being used, or what do you think is the use case for AI and 3D printing?
So AI with 3D printing, there's not a whole lot. I'll go through some examples, but I think that the real benefit is utilizing AI with 3D printing, right? So say Local Motors. So Local Motors is a company that we did a small project for, but their company specifically actually prints out entire buses, shuttle buses, with a 3D printer that's the size of a whole entire warehouse.
Right.
And they drive it with AI. So it's Watson-based, it's big data, it's AI. It can automatically detect if you have a disability, if you're blind, and actually tell you through audio where to sit. In conjunction with 3D printing, I think is the future of it. The robotics industry is utilizing 3D printing and AI together. If you want to apply AI to 3D printing, the only cases which we're still a far ways off is making the production procedure more efficient.
Yeah, more efficient and less errors, right?
Yeah, so like you can start to eventually figure out how best to automate the process using big data. The other one is correcting prints as they fail. Like generally, you have a failure rate with 3D printing, just because many different reasons. But with AI, if you can incorporate a camera to kind of visually see, hey, this is not turning out as expected, and then send it instructions in order to modify that, you'll lower the waste of the failed prints.
Gotcha. So AI in conjunction with, let's say, medical use cases. I think you gave some examples. You're detecting, an illness, and then you're creating 3D printable devices that can help with that illness. I think that's one of the examples you gave, and then the second piece is AI working to improve the defect or failure rate of let's say your production output or something like that. Yeah,
just something that's a little bit more automated and be able to control the machines. Like AI is essentially, making a computer act more human.
Yeah.
Within the manufacturing world, it's, mostly a lot of human tasks that is going to be hard for AI to replicate anytime soon. So by the time it becomes a major factor in 3D printing, it's gonna be a ways off, I would say.
Right. So it can't replace you today.
No, I'm sure eventually, of course.
Okay.
But what's cool about AI, though, and these things I like to follow, is it's, like they call it Industry 4.0. It's a very buzzword-heavy collection of 3D printing, AI, big data, and I think there's another one. But those things are interesting. I think they work really good in conjunction with each other.
Right. Okay. So let's also go into your business, right? You talked a lot about, what you've done. Talked about AI. But if people wanted to contact you today and really give you a model or something to create, how would they go about it? How do they find you?
If you're in Staten Island, you type 3D printing, I'm going to be on the first page.
Okay.
Otherwise, you can go direct to our website. Now, our name, Assembyl, isn't spelled as it sounds. So what we did is created 3dp.nyc, and that'll bring you directly to the website, which is much easier to explain than incorrectly spelled, website.
I gotcha. So it's Assembyl with a Y, right?
Yes.
Okay. And now you're doing some 3D printing classes, right, here in MakerSpace, right? Tell our listeners about what you're doing there and what they can learn by signing up.
Yeah, so for the last 2 years, we've been doing 3D printing 101. So the whole idea of it is basically, number one, introduce people to MakerSpace, which is a great place where people go there and make things not just through 3D printing, but through welding, fabrication, just they do a whole lot of different things. But also to kind of bring awareness to how 3D printing can be beneficial. So people come in with either no experience or some, but the whole point of the class is try to explain, I can't tell people what their solutions are without knowing the problem. The whole idea is for them to realize, wow, 3D printing is something that I can utilize, and this will actually improve my life for the better. So we just go over the very basics of it. We do a very small 3D modeling thing that somebody creates hands-on, it prints, and I go over a lecture of just history of 3D printing, different technologies, kind of just give them a little bit of everything all at once, and then show them follow-up examples of stuff that's been made. Just give them ideas in their head to, kind of spin their gears in their head to figure out what they can use it for. And then we give them $50 of credit with Assembyl 3D, so that way once they leave the class, they can try to figure it out, and then they'll have credit with us to actually start their journey of 3D printing. But we're also, now that we have the new shop that's almost 5 times bigger than the last one, we're looking to create 2 additional classes that utilize the stuff in our shop. So be on the lookout for those maybe end of March or beginning of April. And those should be some, we're still cooking them up, but they should be really cool.
So you're going to do them at your new location?
We're going to do both. 3D Printing 101, we have a partnership with MakerSpace, and, it works great for everybody involved. But there's some things that we can't do there. We have 35 3D printers in our place.
Nice.
So if we have a class size of something, we can just start up as many machines as we need.
Right.
At MakerSpace, there may be 1 or 2, so it kind of limits on what we can do.
Excellent. And what can people expect from your company in the coming months? Any exciting projects? Any exciting services you guys are launching? Please share, overshare, market. Go ahead.
Yeah. So for people that are interested or kind of understand the terminology, so we started with just 3D printing, and it's great because it can provide a lot of solutions, but it's really just one of the tools in your toolbox.
Right.
So by expanding to the new shop now, we can utilize 3D printing in conjunction with other manufacturing processes to expand our offering. So now we're going to be doing, it's not launched officially yet, but we'll be doing mold making. So now we can utilize 3D print to make the master mold and then actually produce low volume numbers as opposed to just doing one-offs with 3D printing. We'll have painting services for post-process, and we'll also have laser cutting services.
Wow. So you're expanding the footprint.
Yeah.
That's excellent.
And it's good because our existing clientele, they might need something printed, but they also need it painted. And they also need maybe something that's laser cutting, like say in the architectural industry, laser cutting is really big there. So now we can kind of take these projects and expand our value to them and offer additional solutions beyond just solely 3D printing.
Awesome. Any last things before we conclude? Michael Perina, founder of Assembyl Technology. Thank you for coming. Anything last you want to share?
No, that's it. Just anybody that hears this that knows of somebody that needs an arm, reach out. I want to do another one. We do it free. We don't charge anything. We had only one other person to actually reach out and ask, and we did, but otherwise we haven't really heard anything. So
thank you for coming along this long journey here in Stapleton to visit us at the Staten Island Business Podcast. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
All right.